Welcome to CinemaGope, everybody. I'm Ben.
I'm Scotty R37.
I'm Karate Action Ben.
And I'm John. And this is our favorite R-rated action film.
Motherfucking titty sucking two ball bitch.
Number one, mother.
Number one. Well, and I suppose, Karate Chop Ben is going to be on my side for this one, but my number one film of all time is Mama Is Not the Law. I am the law.
Judge Dredd from 95?
Dude, my number one is Dredd. I saw this in the theater in 3D, and I was absolutely blown away. I had sort of been casually looking at the comics, and I knew that Judge Dredd was the travesty. But again, I have a soft spot for Judge Dredd, so don't say an unkind word about Judge Dredd. But I went into it, and I was like, this isn't going to be the same thing. It's obviously not the same thing. I can tell the difference between trailers. And so I went in, and I watched it, and I forget the name of the motorcycle, but the lawgiver is the gun. The lawmaker is the motorcycle. And going through practical sets, or at least practical streets, of course, there was sort of matte paintings and CGI backgrounds. But in Cape Town, South Africa, the production of it, going in to... And again, this is not necessarily an elevation of strong female characters for the sake of that. It's not a bumper sticker. Olivia Thirlby in Dredd is awesome.
She's adorable.
She's great. Well, not only adorable, she is exploited heavily. There's a dream sequence where she is assaulted sexually, naked. And it's like... And then she turns the tables on the perpetrator who is attempting to startle her, but she's a psychic.
She's not a victim.
Yeah, she's not a victim.
To your point, yeah. I do remember that character from some of the comics I read, and specifically in the Dredd Predator crossover. That I think it is that character touches some Predator blood and has a vision. But Scott, you would know better than me.
Yeah, but there are psychics in the comics. There are mutations in the post-apocalyptic world that is Mega City 1. And so those things do occur. And it is very much like The Raid. I know that there was a comparison when they were released, but they were sort of not twin movies, but they were movies that were sort of just concurrently made without any idea of one another existing.
I think they're called concept cousins.
That makes, you know what, I like that term, a concept cousin. I like that. Someone's making, and how do you make it? Well, you set it in a building. Okay. Obviously, Carl Urban with the helmet on. The world building was fantastic. Lena Headey as Mama is, just one of the most terrifying. I like a relatively unknown Domhnall Gleeson. Playing like the ginger mullet tech nerd who is terrorized by Mama. So many brilliant action sequences. And of course, there's going to be the CGI at this point. Like, we can't fall back on practical effects, but the way that they're used, the filming of it, the use of CGI, the slow-mo, everything about it is intense. And then you even get the dirty judges and the resilience of the hero who is not going to be defeated. Like, he even gets shot at one point. He's out of bullets. He's got nothing. And the villain, spoilers for Dredd, says, you can't kill me. If you kill me, if I die, this entire building is going to explode. And he's like, I kind of think I know the range of your explosive device. And she's like, are you willing to take that gamble? And he's like, yeah. And the slow motion, like with the guns and everything, when the guys are on slow-mo, he forces the slow-mo into her so that she can experience her own death slower.
So, Scott, I work as a sound mixer, on TV and stuff sometimes. And when he said that line in the theater, I was the only one in the theater that really got it, because I've been fucked like that on jobs because of concrete and range, and I don't give a shit how far in the future it is. They established that was a radio frequency they were using, and I'm like, wow, this is going to be a great way to end the film. It was awesome. It's a great ending to that film.
But there's so much tension in Dredd that that was the last action movie that I saw in a theater, and I was like, fucking A.
The sentence is death.
Well, my number one is Mad Max Fury Road from 2015. What I really love about Mad Max is something we didn't really talk about yet on this list. A lot of these films are franchise films. Maybe the first film. I'm not sure if a sequel. No, we've had sequels. We had all the first 3 Die Hard films. Or as I like to call it, all Die Hard films.
Don't forget Die Hard 3 from 91.
Ricochet.
Because this is the 4th Mad Max film, the world of Mad Max is established. Like, you're going in knowing what you get in this movie, okay? So, starts right off the bat. Max is there. He starts getting chased by war boys, and we go from there. This film hardly ever stops, taps on the brakes a little bit, constantly is going. It's just great. And what's best of all is it's art, man. The use of colors in this film is great. And actually, that's the only reason it beat out Dredd for me, is that it has a better use of colors. Great color use in Dredd, don't get me wrong. But there's something about these giant wide vistas of brown and then blue and then fiery explosions and these white war boys crawling all over giant vehicles, man. The use of colors in this film is something else. And then the action scenes are just amazing. When Furiosa is first pulling away from the war party and they go into this sandstorm, and in the sandstorm of the future, they're more like tsunamis, and there's all these twisters and cars getting picked up and exploding and war boys flying through the air and landing on the ground so hard, and it looks really good. And I know some of it's CGI, but so much of that film is not. It's just cars being destroyed and wrecked.
It's mostly not CGI. Yeah,
most of it's not. No, I think I'm mostly referring to just the body shit in the ground. Is some of that CGI, but I mean the cars themselves. No, they're all exploding. They're all driving. It's a great film for those reasons, and such great characters. I love Max. I love Furiosa. And Mortem Joe's one of the best on-screen villains I've ever seen. As far as just I'm evil. You don't need to know much more than I'm evil. Nux is one of my favorite characters in the film, hands down. Nux
is that a weird way. Nicholas Holt's character? A lovely day. What a lovely day. What a lovely day. That guy?
Witness me.
Witness me.
He's so fucking good. Yeah.
He's so good. And, the Mad Max films, just because of what they are, have something to say about society we live in now and what it could lead to. And being from a small town in the Midwest and where guys are obsessed with cars, I was like, yeah, I could see Nux. I get Nux.
Come on, let's get nuts.
No, there's so many wonderful things about that film. The soundtrack is the next level too. Every song just complements the action on the screen so well, and I especially love the war party's band with the Doof Warrior with the guitar.
Oh my god!
Flames,
that reminds me of Slipknot right there.
It does. I've never seen anything like that in a movie ever, and it's just so fucking cool.
And that's why it was in competition with Dredd, is that for the first act and a half of that movie, I don't think I've ever held my breath longer.
Yeah,
it was just edge of seat. I can't believe what I'm seeing, and I'm enthralled. A majestic tour de force of an action movie. And yeah, as you said, they pumped the brakes.
Well, and the person that directed that movie was technically a senior citizen while directing.
Doesn't look like that. Doesn't look
right.
Like
That's what I'm saying. It's like, how the fuck did that happen?
Also from the director of Happy Feet.
He has a very diverse filmography.
He does.
No, he seriously does.
But he goes all the way back to the first Mad Max, which was a commentary on the origins of Australia as being like a prison colony, and like the fact that can it fall back into that in like a post-apocalyptic world type thing where now everyone's just running mad. And I love that was a thing that George Miller did with the original movie. And I think the Road Warrior is vastly superior to Mad Max personally, but
I do appreciate the perspective of societal decay from an Australian.
it wasn't really till the Road Warrior where you saw like the world's just decimated, because
Mad Max is the ending is there, and there are people trying to hold on to society. And it's appropriate that's what that film is, because once Max loses his family, he doesn't need society anymore. And then the rest of the films really reflect that.
And the character you get in Mad Max Fury Road, he doesn't really reflect that, because now you have Tom Hardy, and it's almost like, and I was fine with this. It's almost like it went James Bond, where it's like, okay, well now there's just a different guy playing it. The backstory doesn't really matter as much. He gives you a little bit of like, he's like, the world's crazy. Maybe I'm crazy, but he doesn't really go into the Mel Gibson backstory, and that's actually a good thing. I think more movies should do that with iconic characters. Like, find someone that's suitable for it and move forward and do new stories.
So my wife and I were talking about this when we were watching Fury Road, because she was curious about this too. And I read one theory that I like, and kind of seems to explain this, is that, so basically, Mad Max, the first film happened, and then maybe the Road Warrior happened. But
it's all
at
myth.
Some point, it's myth. It's apocrypha, where this man named Max brought a sort of justice to the wasteland. Yep. And that's actually how Beyond Thunderdome ends. Think about this too, though. The pilot in the second film is the pilot in the third film, but they're two different characters. If you look at that, and then like you look at the last one with Tom Hardy, it like almost makes sense that like they get further away from what was the real Mad Max, in the beginning of the franchise. I like that a lot, actually. I think that's a really cool thing. That
I do too.
Towards the advantage, yeah.
It's mostly Furiosa, like, that's driving the story in Fury Road. It's not him. He's kind of just like fucking tied up most of the movie. And John, another fucking Tom Hardy movie where he's got a goddamn thing covering his face.
But if I were to give like the two action movies that I've seen in theaters that absolutely enthralled me, it would be Dredd and Mad Max Fury Road. Like, those two are the ones in the last, 10, 15 years that I've seen that are just like, these are the ones that blew my socks off in the theater.
So I just want to say, though, so Ben, you don't need to apologize. I forgive you. We all make mistakes. And I actually really like, because this is the action top 5, how contentious and angry this has been. To that point, Scott,
I've never liked you.
I've never wanted to rip you guys' heads off more than I did tonight.
So, but to that point, Scott, I really appreciate having my back on this. And you, like you said, Mad Max Fury Road is one of your top 2, except it wasn't. So fuck you, bro.
Well,
yeah, no, fair enough. Witness me.
No, but witness me, Ben number 1. I got your back, because I don't really care for Mad Max Fury Road. I mean, it looks great, but it's kind of like whatever. It's a beautiful
story.
It's a beautiful film.
It's a beautiful orchestra of practical stunts, but there's not a lot of heart behind it.
It's an amazing spectacle.
Oh, Ben just is never going to talk to me again.
I know, I'm sorry, but I just had to make that point.
Okay, so first things first, when you watch Mad Max Fury Road, who's the main character? Is it Mad Max? No. Who is the main character of Dredd? It is Dredd. So there's a plus, and I don't think I need any more. But like, it's one of those things where it is, you follow the conviction of the character throughout the story, whereas when I go into Mad Max, I am taken away by the spectacle.
Maybe he doesn't have to be the lead character. I want to say like Beyond Thunderdome was probably the best example of that before Fury Road, where it's like what is this movie about? What is happening? Well, that movie I think is kind of dog shit personally, but it's like you could, if you didn't work at the pace of George Miller and you put these out every 2 or 3 years, you could actually find a structure where there's like a pace to this, and like, oh, Mad Max just finds himself in another situation, and then here's what's happening, and there's fast cars and great stunts.
So we are going international. We are going back to Asian cinema, and my pick is right here. Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. Drifting forward, drifting backward, drifting sideways, drifting 360, drifting out of control. Oh, fuck. Han finally eats shit and dies while drifting. No, so let me show you the real pick here. I'm just embarrassed to show the poster for the movie because it is one of the most embarrassing posters for an awesome action movie.
I can't wait.
Here we go. Ba-boom. Hard Boiled.
Oh, yeah, Hard Boiled.
1992 John Woo action film. Admittedly, it's not the greatest film overall. It's narrative. There's some cheesy. I mean, right there, there's some cheese in this movie, and it can be clunky at times. But the action is unmatched. I mean, other than James Cameron, in my opinion, no one has shot action scenes as good as some of the.
I don't know if a movie has earned its R rating more than this movie, too, as far as violence.
There's a lot of violence in this movie.
Is that a baby?
It's a baby. Chow Yun-fat is a badass in this movie. He's so fucking cool. But yeah, the movie towards the end, there's this like 40-minute action scene that takes place in a hospital, and it gets to a point where he has to rescue all the babies. And there's some insane. If you've seen Face Off, which was another John Woo movie,
I have.
It's very similar in the scene where he's trying to rescue the baby during the shootout.
Yeah.
Which is also John Woo. It was just him redoing the scene in an American film. This one doesn't have as many doves as his other film. Ben, number 2, did you say you have not seen this or don't know about this movie?
No, I've never been aware of this film.
Oh, you would love this movie, Ben.
Okay, you guys, being a fan of The Raid, this is a very early version of like nonstop action when the action is taking place. It's not a film that like once it gets going and you're in this location, you can't stop. It's a cop, action film where they have a shootout, go back to the precinct and investigate this or that. That's the slow parts of the movie that you could care less about. I almost just don't even watch them these days. I just watch the 6 or 7 action movies in this movie, or action scenes in the movie that are just amazing. The practical effects being used, the choreography, the way that he keeps the John Woo shoots things in such a fluid manner compared to what you get nowadays with, I think most of everything that we've discussed is the kind of action I like. You can see it and it's really shot well and choreographed well, but there's a lot of stuff that they put out in today's movie world that they just want this quick cutting and close camera work so you can't tell what's happening. They purposely, the filmmakers know they don't know how to shoot an action scene, so they let the editor chop it up into something that feels exciting but really isn't. You lose all the visceral feeling of it in a lot of modern films. But John Woo was an expert at what he was doing in Hard Boiled. He had made a couple, I don't know how many films he made before this, but he had made a couple. Chow Yun-fat and him teamed up together doing some awesome work. But this is their high point. This is still, in my opinion, John Woo's best film, even with all of his American efforts. But there's just so many amazing action moments in this. There's badass villains in this. There's another hero, Tony Liu. I know he's in a ton of other things, but I can't think of what they are. I want to say he's the dad in Shang-Chi, the kind of villain dad in Shang-Chi. So you guys have all seen him. He's in a ton of things. He's the other kind of hero in this movie. They both do an excellent job. For the two of you who haven't seen this movie or heard of it, have you seen Hard Target, the Jean-Claude Van Damme action film from like 93, I think?
John, I appreciate the fact that you are drawing attention to Hard Boiled. I do not necessarily want to talk about my second favorite Lance Henriksen movie.
Well, all I'm pointing out is that is also John Woo. That's John Woo's first American feature.
Yes, it was.
And if you like what you saw in the action scenes in that film, that's a lot of what you get here. It's the debris, you know, the practical effects with just constant debris and shrapnel flying at the actors. And you're like, how do they shoot this without fucking up everyone's face? Sparks flying, you know, every shotgun blast has just massive sparks and shrapnel and glass flying everywhere every time they shoot something in this movie. But it draws you into that action, so you just find it so believable and realistic, but also unrealistic, because you've got people surviving these things that you're like, there's no way anyone could have survived that, but the way it's shot, you believe it. And I think that's key to making a great action film. Put something on the screen that shouldn't be believable, but you make it seem believable.
I don't really care for his American movies like that much. I mean, Face
I
Off.
love Face Off.
Face Off is a guilty piece of shit pleasure.
Those are brave words for a guy who's only ever had one face.
So my final category is action espionage, and this one is from a person who I think after this film was never really the same, and definitely took a lot longer to produce any other works. And this movie is True Lies. Arnie at his best, as far as acting goes, at his best. This is
If
where
you say
Arnie...
Last Action Hero, I'm going to fall in love.
No, True Lies is the better version of Last Action Hero, where Arnie is in full like self-parody mode, but not to the extent of like he's still playing a character, but he's like, I'm a computer programmer. It's like, no, dude, you're 300 pounds. You're not a computer programmer. But we just believe it because it's a movie. Tom Arnold steals every scene in this movie that's dialogue driven. He's so funny in this movie, and he's so well needed in this movie, because this movie is about the ridiculousness of being a spy and being this gigantic buff guy. And Tom Arnold is the guy he's the audience saying like, dude, look at you. Like, why would your wife like fucking buy any of this bullshit? It's the only time that Arnold Schwarzenegger ever actually feels like he's reading from a script, where he really devotes himself to the script and the character, and he wants it to work for what it's trying to do. And I think that has a lot to do with Cameron and the fact that he worked with Cameron so much. And then you have Jamie Lee Curtis doing possibly one of the most sexiest scenes in any movie ever. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to cause a controversy, but I'm pretty sure that's the scene that made me realize that I was a straight man. Like Arnold, I think you're right. I think it's like peak Arnold, where you get all the action and lows, but like he's personable. Like he is playing a character. Like he's versatile. Like I think after Hercules in New York, he stopped playing just meatheads. Basically, it's just like pinnacle Schwarzenegger, right? But at the same time, Jamie Lee Curtis, this is an awesome role for her. She hasn't done a lot else like this. It's one of her
Oscar
best
worthy.
It
completely reinvented her. Like she just went mainstream right after this movie. And the opening scene of this movie is the best parody, not parody, of like a Bond movie, where it's like, this is how like Schwarzenegger just like punch up through the ice, and then 2 seconds later, the editing, he's got his tuxedo on. It's like he goes upstairs, he does his shit, and then like when they find out about him, like you hear the machine guns going off, but no, he's not getting shot. And then he knocks the two dogs' heads together. It's all just too easy, but at the same time, it's so entertaining.
I love Bill Paxton in this movie.
Oh my God! Oh yeah. Well, the second act of the movie is like hit or miss. You either love it or you don't love it. You know,
well,
I fucking love it.
He's rough to watch, but I think he's fun to watch. But I really love Bill Paxton in this film because, you know, like I know Schwarzenegger's from Austria, but he's the most American thing we've ever produced. You know what I mean? And this film establishes in a bunch of different places, but especially with Bill Paxton, that this is not a Bond film. This is how American spies work. We're, you know, crass. We like to joke around, and when we fuck people, we're married to them.
Pair of titties make you want to stand up and beg for buttermilk. Ass like a 10-year-old boy.
I don't know if James Cameron has written someone from scratch that is as funny and as interesting as Simon is. Dude, he's so perfect. Like,
What about their husbands?
Dickless.
he just happens to like stumble into this woman's life who is married to someone that she does not know is an international spy, and it's just so fucking great because it's such a it's that's what makes this movie so special. Is it's like, here's your like kind of semi parody but semi serious Bond thing, and then there's this like plot with the Bill Paxton thing, and then the movie kicks into some extraordinary action scenes towards the end. That the bridge scene, the fact that they shot all of that practical, even Jamie Lee Curtis hanging off of the fucking plane. There's a little bit of CGI at the end with the Harrier jet, you know, and stuff like that, but it's still believable.
Holds up.
It's
Well.
believable because of the way the movie's presented to you too. Like the you know, you're fired, like the rocket shooting off of the sand spider. It's like, that's funny because the movie never takes itself that seriously, you know? It's never parody. It's a perfect action comedy. When I was 16 years old, I watched this every fucking day. Every day. And sometimes I would just watch certain scenes and dissect those scenes. True Lies was the last movie he did before he went into that Oscar territory and really shifted his career. It's kind of got that soft spot for me because it was that last one. It's the last thing he's ever done with Schwarzenegger, which sucks.
What can I say? I'm a spy.
That was another one that was going to be on my list if I didn't limit this to, you know, I took out action comedies from a possibility, even ones that are grounded, because I had True Lies in the possibility because it is still kind of a just contemporary action film, but the comedy element of it had me say, and it's not ultra violent. There's not a lot of on-screen excessive violence, and so I just kind of, for me personally, that's why I kept it off my list, but it was very close.
There's a lot of F-bombs and there's some good violence in the end section, but
If Jamie Lee had actually taken off her panties and top, then I would have been voting for this.
There's a certain comparison that I hold between Last Action Hero and True Lies.
a lot of people say that, yeah.
Is Last Action R? That doesn't make sense.
No.
I don't think it is.
No, it's not R.
Well, unless you are talking about the director's cut that has a scene where Arnold Schwarzenegger and the guy from Game of Thrones make love.
Oh yeah, no, Toads.
What
No,
you're
it's
talking
the
about.
one.
Okay.
It's the one where Mercedes Rule gives a hand job in the theater.
Charles Dance.
Yes,
To the old dude who runs the place.
Thank you so much for watching Best of R-Rated Action Movies.
Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Love you guys. Thank you so much for being manly men talking about R-rated movies. We'll do it again soon, guys. We drink your cinema.
Get to the chopper.